Many people, when plotting their careers, have a hard time deciding on whether to become a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner. In this video, we have 4 different factors for you to consider when trying to make this decision. Both of these occupations have fantastic job prospects and really good income potential, so these 4 factors will help you decide. Hey everyone, Stephen Hack here with Career Watch, where I help you with your career search. If you end up enjoying the video, hit that thumbs up to support the channel. All the charts and graphs used in this video to compare both physician assistants and nurse practitioners are available on my blog. Check out the link below for more details. You can't go wrong with either of these pretty hot occupations. The first factor I have, factor number 1, is the base salaries for both of these occupations are almost identical. Using 2019 numbers, the government found that the average base salary across the country for physician assistants was $112,410. Meanwhile, the government found that nurse practitioners had an average base salary of $111,840, which is about $570 less than physician assistants. Compared to similar occupations, both these occupations do really well. They tend to out-earn nurse-midwives, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. But they are out-earned by nurse anesthetists. The average base salary for this occupation was $181,040 in 2019. Both physician assistants and nurse practitioners have seen really good wage growth from 2012. The base salaries of both these occupations have changed over time. In 2012, they were both earning around $92,000 per year, and by 2019, they're both earning around $122,000 per year. And they're both seeing a similar level of wage growth over these past 7 years. And they seem to be trading places. In 2012, physician assistants were earning more. From 2013 to 2018, nurse practitioners were making a little bit more money. And then in 2019, physician assistants again are earning nationally a little bit more money than nurse practitioners on average. Both occupations are seeing about a $2,500 wage growth every single year. And using this historical data, we can actually forecast the incomes of physician assistants and nurse practitioners into the future. In 2021, they both make around $118,000 per year, and by 2029, around $137,000 per year as a base salary for both of these occupations. So the base salaries for both these occupations are going to be really similar over the next couple of years, given the past 7 years. The only time the wages look a little bit different for both these occupations is when you go down to the state or metro area level. Certain states tend to pay physician assistants more, and certain states tend to pay nurse practitioners more. High-paying states for physician assistants include the state of Connecticut, Washington, New Jersey, Alaska, California, and New York. Meanwhile, high-paying states for nurse practitioners include California, Washington, Hawaii, New Jersey, Minnesota, and New York. And you can start to see differences in wages. In the state of Connecticut, for example, physician assistants out-earn nurse practitioners on average by around $22,000. Meanwhile, in California, nurse practitioners earn more, and they earn more than physician assistants by $11,140. So on the national level, there's very little difference between the wages of nurse practitioners and physician assistants, but when you do go down to the state and metro area level, you do start to see differences in wages. Factor number 2 when comparing these 2 occupations is there's currently a greater demand for nurse practitioners. First off, the nurse practitioner workforce is a bit larger than the physician assistant workforce. In 2019, there were 200,600 employed nurse practitioners across the country, and there were 120,090 employed physician assistants across the country. So the nurse practitioner workforce has about 80,000 more employed than the physician assistant workforce. Both these occupations have a much bigger workforce than nurse anesthetists and the nurse-midwife workforce. Both physician assistants and nurse practitioners have seen really good job growth over the past 7 years. From 2012 to 2019, there was a gain of 36,450 employed physician assistants, which is actually really good job growth. This chart does not give it justice. Most occupations aren't growing this quickly. The nurse practitioner workforce, on the other hand, almost doubled in just 7 years. This is very unprecedented. Very few occupations have grown this quickly in such a short period of time. So that is the historical job growth of both of these occupations, but the government is also making a forecast for the next 10 years, or at least 2019 to 2029. First off, again, to put this into perspective, the average occupation is expected to rise by 4%. Meanwhile, with physician assistants, they're expected to see a 33% job growth from 2019 to 2029. The government is expecting there to be 37,000 more physician assistants employed in 2029 than there were in 2019. This is really good job growth, and this chart does not give it justice. But meanwhile, with nurse practitioners, they're expecting there to be 304,912 employed nurse practitioners in 2029. This is over 104,000 more employed than 2019. Both these fields are extremely hot, but the government is predicting that there's going to be greater job growth for nurse practitioners over physician assistants. We can take this even one step further, and we can look at job postings across the United States. To find the number of job postings for this occupation, I use Indeed.com. Indeed.com is an extremely popular job search engine. I think it's a great tool because it brings in job postings from many different sources. On Indeed.com, searching for nurse practitioner in the title of job postings gave me 12,245 job postings at the recording of this video. Meanwhile, nationally, searching the United States for physician assistant job postings, where physician assistant is in the title, gave me 5,745 job postings. So there is a greater number of job postings for nurse practitioners than there are for physician assistants at the recording of this video. But this isn't a fair analysis because the workforce for nurse practitioners is much greater than the workforce for physician assistants. But even taking into account the different sizes of both of these workforces, there is still greater demand for nurse practitioner. Taking into account the number of job postings, there are 16 times as many employed as job postings. Whereas physician assistants, there's 20 times as many employed as job postings. Thus, there is greater demand for nurse practitioners. Based off all these variables, there is more demand for nurse practitioners than physician assistants at this point in time. Factor number 3, when comparing both these occupations, is that people working in both of these occupations have very similar Myers-Briggs personalities. And the cool thing about the Myers-Briggs company is they're constantly looking at which personality types are attracted to which occupations. Now, according to the Myers-Briggs company, there isn't an even distribution of Myers-Briggs types across the United States population. The most prevalent Myers-Briggs type was found to be the ISFJ, also known as the protector. In fact, 14% of the US population has this Myers-Briggs type. What's interesting is the INFJ type, the rarest type, is actually the most likely type to become both a physician assistant and a nurse practitioner. Now, to be perfectly fair, the Myers-Briggs book doesn't include nurse practitioner, but they do include registered nurses. So for this comparison, we'll be using registered nurse in place of nurse practitioner. For people that have the INFJ personality type, they have the greatest chance of becoming a registered nurse or a physician assistant. Meanwhile, the second most likely type to become both a registered nurse or a physician assistant is the ENFJ, also known as the giver. Other Myers-Briggs types likely to be attracted to both of these occupations include the ENTJ, the commander, the ENFJ, the caregiver, and the ISTJ, the inspector. And that brings us to factor number 4. People working in both of these occupations have similar interests. If you haven't taken a RIASEC assessment and figured out your Holland codes, this is a great time to do it. Once you figure out your Holland codes, you can compare your interests to people in different occupations. After taking a RIASEC assessment, you get scores in 6 different themes. Both physician assistants and nurse practitioners both score high in the same 3 themes. They both score high in the social theme, they both score high in the investigative theme, and they both score high in the realistic theme. People that score high in the social theme tend to describe themselves as helpful, cooperative, kind, cheerful, and patient, and they're motivated by helping, empowering, and instructing others. These scores are from the Occupational Information Network, which is part of the US Department of Labor. Both physician assistants and nurse practitioners both have the same score for this theme. Both occupations also score pretty high in the investigative theme, whereas physician assistants display a little bit more interest in the theme than nurse practitioners. People that score high in the investigative theme tend to describe themselves as thoughtful, analytical, intellectual, and curious. They often enjoy analyzing, inquiring, and researching different information. Both physician assistants and nurse practitioners score high in this theme, but physician assistants seem to have a little bit more interest in researching and analyzing information. Finally, both occupations scored somewhat high in the realistic theme. People that score high in the realistic theme tend to describe themselves as reliable, practical, thrifty, and persistent. Based off this, nurse practitioners exhibit a little bit more interest in working with their hands, building things, repairing things, than physician assistants. So those are 4 factors that could help you choose between becoming a nurse practitioner and a physician assistant in 2021. Are you a nurse practitioner or physician assistant? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.